even if you've never been there. If you've watched a movie or a TV show set in Reno, Nevada, then you're probably familiar with at least one version of the iconic Reno Arch. But did you know that Reno has proudly displayed an arch for nearly 100 years? Stick around as we uncover the origins, transformations, and stories of the famous Reno Arch. Hi, I'm Tiffany from Destination for Vacation. Thanks for joining me. Whether you're interested in documenting your travel escapades on social media or just enjoy taking a picture with an eye-catching backdrop, you'll want to visit the iconic arch the next time you're in Reno. Actually, my mistake. Let me change that. You'll want to visit the iconic arches the next time you're in Reno. Yep, arches as in plural. Reno's had 3 of them, and guess what? Each of them is still standing, just in different locations. So stay tuned, and I'll show you where you can go to snap some selfies with all 3 of these fun icons. Our story begins in the late 1840s, when what we now call Reno was then known as the Truckee Meadows, part of the Immigrant Trail, and at that point, a pass-through for thousands of people who, by horseback and covered wagon, headed to California for the gold rush. Many of the travelers stopped here for a few days to allow their animals to graze on the native grasses before attempting to cross the steep Sierra Nevada mountains. And it wasn't unusual to see Pony Express riders zipping by to get important letters to their destination. When the Transcontinental Railroad reached the area in 1863, the area now known as Reno and Sparks began to boom. Reno incorporated as a city in 1903 thanks in part to Nevada's mining boom. As cars became more popular, America started building more usable roads, leading to the construction of the Lincoln and Victory highways. In 1926, Reno's original arch debuted at the intersection of Virginia Street and Commercial Row, right in the heart of downtown, and where the current arch is located. With a cost of $5,500 to build and sparkling with incandescent light bulbs and blazing torches, the arch was constructed as part of the Nevada Transcontinental Highways Exposition, a major 6-week promotional fair in Reno that started in June 1927 to commemorate the convergence of the Victory and Lincoln highways to create what we currently know as Highway 40. This helped Reno become an important stop on the connection between East and West. The event was aimed at promoting tourism and boosting the local economy, which had taken a big hit as the area's nearby mining operations had been on the decline for quite some time. Reno was starting to quickly establish itself as a hub for travelers, and the exposition marked a pivotal moment in its embrace of the automotive age. The exposition was not just a celebration of highways and automobiles. It symbolized hope and growth for not just Reno, but for the entire state of Nevada post-World War I. It introduced many to the beauty of Nevada, making it a sought-after travel destination, which has continued to this day. It showcased advancements in transportation and set the stage for Reno's tourism boom. The centerpiece of the exposition celebrations was the arch itself. It was constructed in San Francisco and shipped over the mountains. At the time, it was a very impressive arch. The signmaker's foreman said that he had built many arches, but this one was by far the most elaborate because of its size and number of lights. But despite all the detailed advanced preparations for the steel electric lighted arch, not all went according to plan when it came time for it to be installed. As the contractors were preparing to begin the foundation work, they discovered that a basement ran under the sidewalk on one side of the street, right where they planned to place the arch's concrete piers. Construction had to be halted because the leasers of the building declined to allow the space to be used for the concrete foundation, and the owners of the property were in California. But all was saved when eventually the city and the property's owners had a successful negotiation. I think it'd be interesting to find out if that basement still exists, or if it was closed off when the foundation work was completed. If you know, or if you've heard anything about what happened to that basement, I would really appreciate it if you'd leave a comment below or email me, because I've hit a dead end with my research on the subject. May I briefly pause to ask for your support? I'd really appreciate it if you consider clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. You'd be amazed at just how much it helps the videos from a newer channel like this one reach a much wider audience. Thank you for your consideration. Both sides of the arch were illuminated so they could be read by passengers on the trains and tourists approaching from either north or south. It was a brilliant display of 1,400 white lights that initially read, Reno, Nevada's Transcontinental Highways Exposition, and its date. It beckoned visitors to the city, welcoming them with a stylish flourish. The towers that supported the arch were topped with big American flags, each of which would be illuminated by 500-watt floodlights. The dedication of the arch was held on October 23, 1926, which coincided with the University of Nevada's Homecoming Day. It was attended by the governors of Nevada and California, Reno's mayor, 1,500 Shriners from San Francisco, a 400-man marching unit, and an 80-piece band. At this event, Reno got the honor of being the first community to view the mascot for the Shriners from Islam Temple in San Francisco, a huge 110-foot dragon made of silk and capable of spitting fire at night. It was supposedly warranted to keep evil spirits away from all good Shriners. According to newspaper reports at the time, it took 32 Shriners of a specific unit called the Salamander Guard to carry the dragon, and a flock of others to wait on him and keep him in good humor. Though his story remains unverified, one participant wrote a letter to the Nevada State Journal 40 years later recounting the event. He described the dedication party lasting 3 days and 3 nights, with $30,000 in whiskey consumed, worth about $500,000 today, all supplied free to the revelers. That's about 20,000 bottles of bootleg liquor, which is a notable quantity given that the festivities were being held during Prohibition. Reno's restaurant owners reportedly fed the crowd breakfast, lunch, and dinner for all 3 days, paying for the expense themselves. One Reno Gazette journalist mused that the accounts of this epic weekend could certainly be true, as the newspaper had been publishing daily updates about the arch for weeks leading up to the parties, but then took a 2-day break after the festivities that weekend. He wondered if perhaps the reporters were just too hungover to report on the event. Interestingly enough, there were no pictures of the revelry to be found. Because it was so elaborate, the city had always planned on keeping the arch at its Virginia Street location. Prior to the arch's installation, the city made arrangements to take over the cost of its operation and maintenance once the arch was gifted to the city at the conclusion of the exposition. But there was a problem. The lettering on the arch specifically advertised the exposition. So the plan was to hold a contest during the exposition to choose a permanent slogan. But for whatever reason, that plan never came to fruition. The arch still advertised the long-gone exposition. So in August of 1927, a contest was held locally for a new slogan to add to the sign. Hundreds of entries were mailed directly to the mayor. Here are some of the slogans that were submitted by the public to show you what might have been. Reno, the city that reflects the spirit of the West. Reno, Nevada's silver lily. The busiest little city in the West. Stop! Look me over! If you are in a rush, we will get you a divorce in 3 months. And the very poetic, like this. Here in Nevada, where the sagebrush grows, nature has forgotten to record its woes. When the mayor at the time wasn't happy with the ideas submitted, the contest was expanded about a year later, this time offering a prize. The winner? Mr. G.A. Burns from Sacramento provided the motto, "The biggest little city in the world," and on March 14, 1929, it entered Reno's history books, with the arch modified to adopt the slogan. Mr. Burns was awarded $100, worth about $1,600 today, which he promptly turned around and donated to a Reno charity. Yet the slogan wasn't actually new. A form of it, "the biggest little city on the map," had been used in thousands of flyers to promote a 1910 boxing match that had been held in Reno. And the slogan, "the biggest little city in the world," periodically had popped up in the years since. But the slogan stuck, and it continues to represent Reno today. The arch was updated with the second version reading, "Reno, the biggest little city in the world," with the torches from the original version of the arch maintained, as were the flagpoles, which, reportedly, never again waved an American flag after the Exposition concluded. But, as with many things, time brings change. By 1932, the Great Depression had come to Reno, and like most cities, hit it hard. With 944 electric light bulbs to maintain and an annual electric bill of $360, the equivalent of about $8,400 today, the city decided that it simply couldn't afford to continue to pay for it. So on November 4th, 1932, the lights were turned off. But Reno's business owners believed that the sign's advertising values were definitely worth the expense, so they raised funds. And on April 17, 1932, the famed slogan once again blazed in the night skies. By 1934, many of Reno's downtown casinos were starting to use neon in their signage, and residents felt the arch could use a little modernizing to match it. So a third version of the arch, minimalist in design, called for the removal of the glittering incandescent bulbs as well as the torches. By that point, some considered slogans to be a bit passé. So the biggest little city in the world was removed from the arch as well. Now, the arch simply read Reno in green neon. Of course, you can't please everyone, so after a public outcry, the slogan was added back to the arch in June 1935 in blue neon Art Deco lettering. Just 5 years later, the word Reno was converted to white neon and the slogan to canary yellow. Finally, in 1950, the slogan's color was once again changed, this time to red. As the years passed, the original arch started to show its age. While it had served its purpose to celebrate the city, the urban landscape of Reno had evolved, and some felt it was time for a renovation. By 1963, Herald's Club publicist Roy Powers spearheaded a campaign to raise $100,000, the equivalent of nearly $1 million today, for a whole new arch to commemorate Reno's 100th anniversary. The casino owners from the Herald's Club, the Prima Donna, the Nevada Club, Poor Pete's, the Colony Casino, and the Horseshoe offered to not only pay for the new arch, but also pay to operate it for the first 5 years. And on New Year's Eve, 1963, it was dedicated. This new installation was similar in design, but aimed to reflect the evolving spirit of the city. Neon lights remained, but the colors and style had a modern twist. With plastic panels, 1,800 twinkling blue and white lights, and an inverted arch for the slogan, this version was meant to affirm the city's self-proclamation as the biggest little city in the world. Its centerpiece, which was mounted into place by helicopter, was a 28-point stylized star that was 12 feet from tip to tip and designed to rotate 3 to 4 times per minute. At its dedication ceremony, the then mayor pulled a fake slot machine arm and hit a jackpot, which activated fireworks, an aerial bomb, balloons, and the arch's neon lights. And the 1926 arch? Well, originally it was moved to Idlewild Park, which was fitting, as that was the original site where the 1927 Transcontinental Highways Exposition had been held. There it stood as a nostalgic reminder of Reno's past, but it never found a permanent place to shine anymore. After a 6-year stint there, the street in front of Idlewild Park needed to be widened, so the arch had to go. It was relocated to Paradise Park in 1969, where it stood for the next 18 years. But by 1988, it was in pretty poor condition, so much so that it was determined to be a public safety hazard that was just too expensive for the city to repair. So the arch was dismantled. The city offered it to the Smithsonian but never received a reply. So it was eventually retired into storage in the Public Works Yard, where it would languish for another 6 years. During the construction of the second arch, promises had been made to keep it sparkling clean by several washings a year. But, as they say, promises are made to be broken. City residents found this out when on October 27, 1977, the famous sign suffered major fire damage. Not from arson. Instead, according to a newspaper article at the time, methane gas, caused by nearly a ton of pigeon droppings on the arch, was ignited by the arch's electrical system. The Harold's Club Casino, located just steps away from the arch, held a contest to save the arch by diverting the pigeons. I kid you not, citizens were urged to mail in their recommendations for this worthy cause, making sure their envelopes were addressed to the attention of pigeon droppings at Harold's Club's P.O. Box. Apparently, a palatable solution was found, and the arch's lights continued to beckon visitors until 1987, when, once again, Reno residents called for an upgrade, and funds were raised to replace it. The third arch first showcased its modernized light and color scheme at its dedication ceremony on August 8, 1987. 20,000 people were enthralled as casino lights were turned off and the arch brilliantly lit up in celebration. It included 2,076 bulbs, had a shiny gold skin, and bright fuchsia neon lettering, proudly illuminating Reno in the night sky. This was also when the arch received its own address, 255.5 North Virginia Street. It blazed proudly without issues for 30 years. Then, in 2017, the Reno City Council voted to refresh the arch with blue, white, and silver paint and brushed stainless steel skin at a reported cost of about $220,000. The color scheme honored the University of Nevada, located a few miles away, and matched Nevada's state colors of blue and silver. During the day, the word Reno appears silver, but at night, its fuchsia color continues the tradition of making it a standout. The updated arch was revealed during Reno's 150th birthday celebrations in 2018. Luckily, the original arch that was languishing in the Public Works Yard was not lost to history. In 1987, the same year that the third arch was installed, the former Lieutenant Governor of Nevada offered to buy it for $1,000, about $2,300 in today's prices, so he could display it in the backyard of one of his houses. He was an eccentric man and had been featured on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, but the city council wisely delayed out of hopes the sign could be kept in Reno. Another Reno businessman offered $1,000 for the sign, but the council decided to put the arch up for bid to see if there was a better plan. With no bids, the arch remained in storage at the Public Works Yard. At the same time, the second arch, installed in 1964, the one with the pigeon droppings, was languishing alongside the original arch at the Public Works Yard. The small town of Willits, California, off of Highway 101, viewed by many to be the gateway to the Redwoods, came calling for the second arch. While the Nevada Heritage Preservation Group tried to fight to keep the arch in Reno, even going so far to make a $2,000 offer for the arch, it was denied because it had no specific plans for refurbishing and installing it. Attorneys for the city declared that city property could not be disposed of through sale to private parties, but Reno could loan the arch to another public agency for public use. So for the initial 26 years, the town of Willits borrowed the arch until the city council made arrangements to give it to the town. Once it made its way west to Willits in various pieces, it took about 5 years of donated expert time and skills from Caltrans, engineers, and designers to alter the second arch so it would safely span California State Highway 101. At the same time, they earthquake-proofed it and created a design that better suited its more sedate environment. But despite all the volunteered hours, it still cost the city about $75,000. It was formally dedicated on July 1st, 1995, and the town held a raffle of a Mazda Miata convertible to pay off the debt. And the original 1926 arch? Well, after its dismantling and storage in Reno's Public Works yard, in 1994, a film crew brought the arch back to life by reassembling it for a 4-day movie shoot on 4th Street. The movie? Cobb, which was about the famous Hall of Fame baseball legend Ty Cobb, played by Tommy Lee Jones, and set in the 1920s. Residents felt a sense of nostalgia for the old sign, so after the movie, it was moved to Lake Street, just south of the Truckee River, in the hopes of drawing more visitors to Bill Harrah's National Automotive Museum. But because visitors to the museum enter through the back entrance, many of them miss seeing this original beauty. When I first visited the museum, back in 2012, I had no clue the arch was nearby, as GPS had taken us down some side streets to reach the museum's parking lot and entrance. I made sure to remedy that the next time I visited the museum, after I'd become aware of the arch and its history. So now you know. And here are the actual addresses for each arch, so you can check them off your bucket list by visiting all 3. The old Reno arch, the arch that stood from 1926 to 1963, now stands at the address 1 Lake Street, Reno, right in front of the National Automotive Museum. The second Reno arch, which has been given a new life as the Willits Arch, can be found at 1040 California State Highway 20 in Willits, California. And the third arch can be found just steps away from the El Dorado Casino and Hotel at 255.5 North Virginia Street in downtown Reno. I love visiting Reno, and I seem to discover something new every time I return. There are several other great spots to visit in Reno and the surrounding areas that tend to be a little under the radar for many visitors. Destination for Vacation plans on releasing videos for these locations soon. If you subscribe now to the channel, you'll be notified when they're released. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you can join me again soon in one of these videos. Until then, here's hoping that your next adventure is just around the corner.